All right, so we're airing live. I'm going to do one last ditch effort to try to get some people on before we begin, because I think I have some people that are trying to get on and maybe having complications. So let's send it out again. See if we can get some people on here before we get going. All right, so we got that. Go there. All right. Want to get as many people on as possible. So you want to help them out. Okay. All right, so we're about to get started. Want to thank everybody coming on board, taking a look at us. Create Your New Life Real Estate Training, session 14. We do this every week, 11:30. Come together and let's talk about some items, how to help you get to the next level in your real estate career. Because we all got into this business. Yeah, we like helping people get into homes, and we probably get a lot of fulfillment out of that, and hearing people's stories and meeting people and things of the sort. But you know, we got to make some money. We want to make some money because it's important for us to be able to afford the level of livelihood that we're looking to afford and have that flexibility that we're looking to have. So we want to talk about those things and really encourage everyone and all of you to be able to be a part of it. So create your new life real estate training, going live typically every Thursday at 11:30. Every now and again we have to make some sort of adjustments, but we're going to go with it. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're absolutely going to continue our conversation around working with buyers. So we're going to continue that conversation, and we are going to pick up on the presentation that we had started on last week, and we're going to finish that out as well. So buyers really need you to be the expert. You know, last week's was buyers need you to be the expert, and this week's they really need you to be the expert. The buyers do. So before we get into that, want to remind you guys that on Monday we're going to be having lunch provided by Security National Mortgage Company. They're going to be coming in at 12:30 here at the corporate office. So 12:30, come here, get about 15 minutes, hear about what products they have to offer, and go ahead and enjoy some food that they're going to be providing for us. So that's next Monday. In addition to that, and the reason that we're doing this next thing, I'm going to kind of speak more about that before we get to our training about buyers. But next Wednesday at 12, we're going to be having here at the corporate office a training around you becoming a better telephone closer, or you becoming a telephone closer. You being on the phone, either answering the phone here at the office or making your own phone call, once you begin getting putting your marketing out there and having listings, how do you phone call when somebody's calling in on a listing that you have? How do you feel that, and how do you convert that person into a client? So we're going to do an hour training around that, because what we want to start doing beginning next week, this is especially for our full-time agents, we want you all to start coming into the office and manning our phones. We want you to start coming in here. We get so many phone calls on a daily basis that, we have April here, and she's our client relationship manager, but there's so much opportunity for an agent to come into the office on a consistent basis, answer the phones, and convert these phone calls that we're getting into people that you can work with, help these buyers or even sellers call into the office, that you can convert and help these people with their process. There's more than enough pie for everybody. So it's not all about us and the corporate team and us capitalizing on that. So next Wednesday at 12, put that on your calendar. Here at the corporate office, we're going to be doing that training so you can see our techniques, how we use it, how we convert them, do some role playing through that. So beginning the following week, we can have you all start coming in on a consistent basis, probably 2 days a week. Come in, man the phones, give April some assistance so we can maybe transition her in some of the other databases that we have so we can be engaging. So I wanted to take the time to kind of go through why we want to position something like that, you know, moving forward. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the time that I usually use to talk about any current happenings to really have that dialogue here. So let me share my screen. You know, before we, you know, as we go into that conversation, remember our core purpose is to create a greater experience for every stakeholder in the real estate community. So this falls in line with the real estate community and us creating that greater experience. So, you know, what does the real estate community entail? Well, you have loan officers, you have title companies, but the majority of it has to do with buyers and sellers. The majority of the real estate community has to do with people that are trying to buy a house, people that are trying to sell a house, right? So that's why we want to impact that space as best as we can, because we also understand that as we are successful with the buyers and the sellers, that's what's really going to help take our company to the next level, right? And accomplish that big, hairy, audacious goal at BHAG of being #1 by 2020. Like, we got to start with the customer base. So we want to create that greater experience for every stakeholder, starting with the customer base when it comes to the real estate community of which we all are a part of. Okay, so now we want to train you all to be able to convert these leads, because those are individuals that have raised their hand and said, we need help. Clearly, they're not understanding the process, and nobody has taken the time to explain the process to them, because if they did understand the process, it's no way that they should be calling our office inquiring about properties. Unless, you know, they should have some level of representation. They should have gone through these steps that we train you all on, these stages. First stage being them getting educated, the second stage them being getting their credit in order, the third stage being they would have talked with some type of financing professional, the fourth stage they're looking for a home, right? But most people skip those 3 stages, those first 3 stages, and they want to jump right into shopping for a home, right? So these people haven't been educated. So our gift to the industry, our way of offering a greater experience, is that we're going to provide that education for these individuals, you know, at least start with the individuals that are calling into our offices that we have out there. Start with education. Not only be able to educate you all to have opportunity to capture. We're going to be doing that training. Now, here we go. All of this stuff, remember, I'm an engineer, so I'm all about having stuff connect. All of this stuff is going to, everything that we do, I'm extremely intentional about how we've set it up and how it can all connect together. So whether that's the core purpose, the big, hairy, audacious goal, if I'm a new agent, you know, what I need to be doing, all the way through, you know, our trainings, it's all going to connect in some way to make you a better agent and make you more money. So lead generation, lead follow-up is the space that we're hitting with having you all come in here, get the training, and then begin coming into the office and, you know, managing the leads that we're producing. See, that's lead generation and lead follow-up for you, right? And I just really don't believe professionals in our industry really understand how dramatic lead generation is to you, to your success. I don't really think people get it. I just see too many people that are licensed real estate professionals that have been doing real estate for years and even on a full-time basis that are just struggling in this business. I mean, they are struggling every day to pay their bills, to have a level of quality of life. They just are having a very hard time at this business. And I believe a lot of it has to do with the fact that they just really haven't got it to where lead generation has to be 80 to 90% of your business model. Like, it has to be wrapped around that 100%. Lead generation has to be something that you're doing. Lead generation, lead follow-up has to be something that you're doing every day. 80% of your time. If you're working 9 hours or 10 hours a day, that means if you're talking lead generation, lead follow-up is 80% of it, that's 8 hours of your time working needs to be on some level of actual lead generation, preparing for lead generation, or creating some new lead generation concept that's going to contribute to your lead generation. And you have to be measuring it, because if you're not measuring it, you're not doing it. We all think that we've made more phone calls than we actually have until we measure it. I can make 5 calls, and if somebody said, well, how many calls have you made? I'm going to think I made 10 calls. I think it's just the psyche. But until I actually try to write the names of the people that I called, and then I realize, oh man, I thought I called 10 people, but I really only called 5. And what's happening is that even those individuals that are, you know, made it a staple for them to lead generate and, you know, lead follow up, even for those individuals, if you're not measuring how many calls that you're making, you're coming up way shorter than you think. And that again is contributing to why you don't have the amount of money that you want in this business. So you have to measure it. My rule of thumb is that any full-time agent, if you're not doing at least 100 contacts a week, then you're not positioning yourself to be successful. Now, if you've made a commitment to lead generation and lead follow-up of 80% of your day, then that's easy. If you've made a commitment of lead generation and lead follow-up to be, you're doing 8 hours out of 10 hours of lead generation and lead follow-up a day, then it's not going to be difficult for you to get your 100 contacts. That's not going to be a challenge. But you got to be committed to that, and you got to be committed to measuring it. 100 contacts a week. Any full-time agent needs to be doing that, but you got to have a mechanism. And most people, they have a hard time figuring out how to keep track of their contacts. The easiest way that I found is by just using my phone. I just use my phone, and I have a note inside of my phone, and I call that note daily activity. Daily achievement. You probably can't. It's daily achievements is the title of that note. And I measure thank you cards. I measure contacts. I even measure my social media. How many engagements are we having on social media? I measure all that. And then every week I add all that up, because I have to present my numbers at our staff meeting on Monday, along with everybody else that's a part of the corporate team, even include Mr. Brooks. We all have to present what our numbers were for the week. How many contacts did we make? How many thank you cards did we send out? How many appointments? All of that. All of that has to be presented on Mondays. And that's a habit that I encourage each and every one of you all to start doing. It is paramount in you having the level of success that you want in this business. That is paramount. It's not one of those things I can't do that. That's just not my makeup. Like, I'm a believer of that. Not, there are certain skill sets that a certain type of person has that another type of person does not have, right? So I'm a believer of that. This right here, though, is so paramount when it comes to being successful in not just real estate but sales. But because we're in real estate, we're going to talk real estate. It's so paramount that you can't allow that to be an excuse. You not being able to keep track of how many contacts that you're making on a daily basis. You can't allow that to be an excuse, because it's a detriment to your business. That excuse being in front of you is a detriment to your success. So you got to knock that thing out of there. You got to get that out of the way, because that is holding you back. You have to be able to identify how many conversations that I'm having, letting people know that I do real estate, that we're engaging. How many emails am I receiving from individuals concerning real estate? How many text messages? How many social media engagements? And I'm not talking about you just putting a post out there. You put a post around something real estate and one of your Facebook friends likes that post, that's an engagement, because that's a person that saw something, had to do with real estate, which would have reminded them that you do real estate, and they liked it. That's an engagement. You want to count that. You all need at least 100 of those if you're full-time every week to position you and put you on track. So what we're offering for you all to come and begin doing, beginning with this training next week, next Wednesday at 12, what we're offering is you don't even have to worry about the lead generation piece. You just got to be here to follow up with the people. You just got to cover the follow-up. Like, we've taken one thing off of your plate that you got to worry about. Now, look, don't become complacent around it. For those that are going to participate in it, don't become complacent around it and then you stop lead generation altogether. Now, we're not saying that we're offering enough lead generation to provide you the level of life that you want to live. Like, it's not going to be to where you can fund your entire real estate business off of what we have to offer. Because keep in mind, this thing's being spread around to people. But it's just a portion or a piece to really just kind of jumpstart, just like a spark plug, right? It's just like when you're, for those that are familiar with pumping, when you're trying to pump water out of the ground, you got to prime the pump, right? You got to prime that pump before any water starts actually coming out of the nozzle. So all we're saying is that we're going to help you prime the pump by offering you throwing you some leads and some opportunities, so you can begin following up with them and start practicing your craft on them and put yourself in a position to where you can have some opportunity. But all that's doing is just priming the pump. You're the one, through your efforts on a consistent basis, outside of what you do at this office, that's what's going to have you have water coming out of the spigot, not what we're giving you. We're just priming it, right? So I wanted to spend some time really trying to hit that home, and I'm going to continue to do that on a consistent basis, that piece, because our trainings are not going to be filled with a lot of various amounts of just complicated rhetoric and any of that stuff. We have our business model. We have our beliefs and our ideology. We're going to be consistently putting that in your face, consistently putting it in your face and holding you accountable to it, right? I hope what I say convicts you if you're not doing this stuff that we're saying, because I've said these things on numerous occasions. So it's not a matter of me introducing new information to you. It's just a matter of, are you doing it? And if you're not doing it, I hope when you are participating in these trainings every Thursday that what I say convicts you. So starting as soon as we get off the call or the video, you'll begin doing it. I wanted to convict you deep down inside, because you need to take that conviction and go with it so you can create that new life through real estate, through being a part of this business. Right? Okay, so let's jump back into working with buyers and buyers really needing you. So let's finish this. Let's see if we can finish this off today. All right, quick recap. everything that we're talking about is in your 7-Dot training folder. Again, utilize the folder. You have access to the resources. Look at these videos. Look at the videos when it comes to creating a contract. Like a lot of that transactional stuff is accessible to you. So look at it. Let's see. Trying to pull up your folder. But okay, so if that doesn't, maybe it'll pull up. I was trying to pull up the 7-Dot training folder to show you where you can get this process from. But this process is in there. And this is our complete process for working with buyers from the initial phone call all the way to the closing table. So we have every single step in there that we use when it comes to working with buyers, that process. So utilize it. All right, so now where we are. So we've spent time going through the pre-qualification questions. You know, we've encouraged the client. We've prepared for the appointment. We've got all the forms, which are, if this Google Drive ever comes up, if not, your 7-Dot training folder, there is a folder that has all of the forms that we use. Everything that's on here is in that folder and you have access to it. All you have to do is just print them out. Or if you're using your iPad, you can just pull it up digitally. Okay, so we've gone on the buyer presentation, and we're going to the buyer appointment, and we now in the buyer's presentation. So we've had them fill out the first 2 forms, right? So we have them fill out the buyer questionnaire, and that's the form that they use to let us know where they want to stay, to give us all of the information that we're needing to know where they want to stay, how much they want to spend, how soon are they looking, and then it also gives us some information around what do they need as far as from a communication standpoint in their agent. So it's also going to tell us information. So then we have them fill out the what kind of buyer are you, right? So the what kind of buyer are you form is key, because it tells us exactly what their level of motivation is. And it doesn't just tell us, it also tells them what their level of motivation is. So there are no surprises in this process. If a person fills that form out and it says to them, hey, you're not as motivated as you try to portray with agents and other people, if you're saying that you're C-level motivation, then that form details that in this one page, details that and shows them, your motivation level is low, right? So, this isn't the right time for you to be going through some of these steps, which for the most part is them calling around wanting to go inside of houses. Like, you're not ready for that step right now. So maybe you should just spend some time on HAR and do some window shopping. Look at some pictures and things like that. It's no point in us to send you stuff. You have access to the information online. So they filled out those 2 forms. And remember, you don't want to sit next to them because it's going to prolong the process. So you go ahead and let them fill those forms out. Go find something else to do with yourself, but just don't be next to them, because if you're next to them, they're going to be tempted to talk to them. You're going to be tempted to talk to you. They're going to be tempted to talk to you, and you're going to be tempted to talk to them. So go find something else to do. Allow them to fill the forms out, because you want to make sure that you're effective in when you're, once you do build up a large volume of business, you may be having 2 or 3 appointments a day, so you don't want to be spending 2-3 hours with people if you don't need to. So get them in. You should get everything done. Build your rapport. Get them to buy into you. Get them excited. Get your documents signed. Go through the presentation. You should be able to do all that in an hour or less, right? Without being rushed, without rushing through it. Okay, so it finally pulled up my forms, and I just want to show you again in your 7-dot training folder, we have process for working with buyers. So that's the first folder, and inside of that folder has this process that I pulled up. It also has a folder that says initial buyer consultation appointment, and that folder has all of the forms, including the presentation, all of the forms that I just talked about, the new home buyer questionnaire, the what kind of buyer are you, the client broker loyalty agreement, which is what we use for them to solidify our relationship. But there's also a video on there that shows me actually going through a live initial buyer consultation with some clients. Now you can't see the presentation, but you can see me explaining the presentation to them. Okay, so last week we looked at maybe the first 3 slides when it came to the presentation. So this is the actual buyer presentation that we go through with them. So last week we stopped on the pre-approval for your financing, and we talked through the benefits. Okay, we're going to pick up on this slide. So at this point, we've done those parts. We've gone through those first 3 slides, and now we pull this one up to where it talks about the MLS and internet. Now, we know that 90% of home buyers begin their search on the internet. We know that the HAR.com is the largest marketplace, especially in Houston, when it comes to retail properties. So don't try to defend the fact that you know some things that they can't find on HAR and try to wrap your value as a real estate professional around the fact that you can find properties that they can't find. Don't do that. Stop doing that. You don't need to do that anymore. The value of the real estate agent stopped being access to the properties once your Zillows, Realtor.coms, HARs were birthed. Once that happened, that we handed away the keys as the gatekeepers to properties that were for sale. We no longer with that. Now it took us a while to embrace that, and there's still some people out here, there's still some agents out here that are trying to defend the fact that buyers have to go through them to access properties, and those that are still doing that are losing horribly. Okay, so that is not what our value is lined up in, us giving buyers access to properties. Now what does that do? That does a couple of things. Number one, that gets you a response when somebody just wants you to send them properties. Now you can say, well, look, if you just want to look at properties, go to HAR. Spend some time on HAR, put in your criteria, and you'll be able to look at properties, however many properties, however long you want to look. The same properties that I have access to. So that frees you up from feeling obligated to do searches every day for people. You ain't got to do that because they can spend time. Matter of fact, they're going to spend more time on the computer than you are looking for their stuff anyway. So that frees you up. The second thing it does is that it allows you to better get them to understand and educate them on what the true role of a buyer's agent is, right? So that's where you can begin that conversation with this slide, reminding them that, hey, it's not about me having access to the properties, right? Reminding them that our fees are paid by the seller. So you're not even responsible for the service that you're agreeing to today. It says that all brokers have access to the same information. See, we talked about that. It's not about the access to the information. The biggest difference is the speed. So what you want to sell your client is not only the information, or not necessarily being the gatekeeper of them finding a home. You want them to understand that there's a level of value in the fact that I'm a full-time agent for you all that are full-time. I'm a full-time agent, therefore I have more time to get you the information than you mainly have, because most people that are looking to buy homes they're not full-time agents clearly, so they have they will be trying to do this thing part-time, or when they have freed up time they have to work. Well, I don't. So that means I have the time to get the information to you faster. So that's where the whole speed piece comes in, right? You want to paint yourself to your client as a consultant. You're here to counsel them, right? Like a lawyer. A lawyer, the laws, everybody has access to what the laws are. That's simple. But it's the interpretation of the law. It's the effectiveness of understanding how to utilize the law where the lawyer's value comes in. And we're the same way as real estate professionals. It's the not finding you the house, it's the understanding the process and the steps of successfully buying the house, putting you in a position as a buyer to where you can get your offer accepted when we end up in a multi-offer situation, or get you to not waste your time going down a road that we know is not going to end well as long as you trust our information. So that's where our value comes in as a consultant, and you have that conversation with them with that slide. Okay, so you want to bring in the conversation of for sale by owners as well, because now this right here is one of those places that from a corporate standpoint that we've kind of created. We wanted to create some level of secondary market that wasn't on HAR.com, right? So we actively look for sale by owners and compile a database of for sale by owners, and we do it on a daily basis. Like, we positioned ourselves with investors, wholesalers, for sale by owners, just created a pattern, the green sheet, Craigslist. We've created this pattern around looking for off-market properties and compiling them on a list that we only have access to, which is that list. So now when I sit down with a buyer, I can tell them, well, yes, we do have access to properties that you don't have access to. Matter of fact, we have access to properties that no other agent has access to. We have a list of properties that no other real estate company has access to. And why don't they? Because we're the ones that created the list and continue to add to it, take away from it. Like, we're the ones that managing the list. It's our list. Nobody else has access to it. So now when you're sitting down, and you all have, well, clearly you all have access to it because you're Brooks and Davis agents. So if you sit down with a buyer, and if they're interviewing multiple buyers, agents, and you're able to tell them, well, I have access to properties that no other real estate company has access to. Only agents that are part of Brooks and Davis have access to that list of properties. Do you think that's going to have you do a step above the agents or the companies that you're competing with? Absolutely, it's going to have you go a step above, because everybody's looking for what makes you different, what makes you unique. There are 32,000. Remember, I always throw that number out there. There are 32,000 real estate professionals in our metroplex. What makes you stand out from the other 31,999? What are you going to bring to the table that separates you and that's needed, right? Because everybody knows a realtor. So right here is the slide where we introduce that, right? And then we let them know we know how to work with for sale by owners, right? So there are people out there, because you've gone through the whole conversation of agents everybody has access to HAR and all of that stuff, right? But these for sale by owners are not on HAR. Most of them are not on HAR at all. So you tell them, hey, if you pass by for sale by owner in your neighborhood, you don't call them, you call me, right? And the reason you call me, number one, because we've created a relationship. So why would I have you doing work that I know I need to be doing? So you call me first, because that for sale by owner will pay the commission just like a seller will, right? Because if a for sale by owner does not pay a realtor any kind of commission, how are they going to get their paperwork done? See, it's not about, oh, I don't want my house on the market, or I can sell my house on my own. It's not, none of that. It's not about any of that stuff. Once you put that sign out and that owner gets a buyer, Well, unless that buyer is a real estate agent or an investor, who's going to do the paperwork, right? They're either going to have to get with a real estate agent or they're going to have to get with an attorney. All right, so now, the difference between an attorney and a real estate agent is that an attorney, you got to pay them by the hour. Whether you close on that deal or not, that attorney is going to send you an invoice. As a real estate agent, we get paid when the deal closes. So if a deal busts out, we typically don't go back to the client or the seller or the buyer and tell them to pay us. We typically don't do that. So it's in their better interest to partner up with a real estate agent who is familiar with and has all of the forms and things when it comes to real estate documents versus trying to get an attorney to do it. So that's how we're able to get the for sale by owners to pay us. And that's what you say to your client, the buyer that you're sitting in front of. Now again, we're talking about stuff that most agents are not having this level of conversation with a buyer before they begin the process. They're not. So we're giving them different things. All right. So then we also have the conversation when it comes to new home builders and open houses. So the builder pays all my fees, right? Again, same thing with the for sale by owner. So it's a free service to you. You don't have to pay it. This open house guest pass really is your business card. At this point, you'll pull out and you are kind of looking at things, getting an idea of where you want to be, or even considering a particular card. If you see that agent, or if you go to a new home site without me, hopefully you would call me first before you start visiting new home sites. But in the event that you do go to one, then you give my card to that agent, or you give my card to that new home sales counselor, so they will call me instead of calling you. It's a way for you as the buyer to still have a level of separation, a level of buffer in between you and the other salesperson, because you don't want to give away your negotiating position. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to negotiate on your behalf and get you the better deal. And I don't even like to negotiate my own properties, because if I'm trying to buy a house for me and my family to live in, I'm emotionally into the process. So I need somebody that's not emotionally tapped into it, because they'll be able to do a better job of negotiating than I will. Okay, so again, the benefit to you is representation, because that on-site salesperson represents the builder. They don't represent you. They may smile at you and shake your hand and take you around and offer you some cookie and some coffee, and even say we'll take care of the paperwork and I'll hold your hand through the process. They'll say all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, that builder has hired that sales counselor, and that sales counselor is supposed to get that builder the better deal. He represents them. That right there is a piece that many people many of our consumers and customers, they don't connect that. They don't connect the fact that the sales counselor represents the builder. So a lot of them are going to those new home build sites thinking that they don't need a realtor, feeling, hey, I bought a new home, so that's why I didn't call you, right? They don't get it. They don't understand that you left money on the table, because that builder got a better deal than you got, because that sales counselor is paid to get that builder the better deal. You didn't have any representation. All right, so we talk about that. All right, so this is a powerful part of the presentation as well, because this is going to prevent you from driving all over the city showing somebody 10, 20, 30, 40 houses before they make a decision, because some people feel like they just need to see a bunch of houses. They feel like if they haven't looked at a certain amount of houses, they haven't experienced real estate. So this right here is going to prevent you from having to do all of that. All right. So I tell them the average buyer looks at, but before I even, and remember the stuff in the green populates. So it's first going to give me a blank. It says the average buyer looks at blank homes before finding the right one. So what I'm going to ask them is, well, how many homes do you think the average buyer looks at? And clearly they're going to say, and that right there is going to give me an idea of, am I going to have to deal with that line of thinking around, I have to look at a bunch of homes. So am I going to have to deal with that? So if they say 4 or 5, then boom, we're right on the money. So I already know that I'm going to be working with somebody that understands that they may be purchasing a home after only looking at 5 properties. All right, I'm good. But if somebody tells me 15 or 20 or 25, I got to deal with that. And I got to deal with that right now, because I don't want to be dragged along in this process because somebody wants to keep getting in the car and looking at properties and they're not able to make a decision. So I deal with that at the initial buyer consultation. And I say, hey, look, the average buyer looks at 5 homes, right? They don't look at 10 or 15. So then I come back to them. Why do you feel like you need to look at 10 or 15 homes before you make a decision? And then they're going to tell me why they feel the way that they feel. All right. So a lot of times, I just let people know, don't feel like you're out of the ordinary or you're not average if you want to buy the first house you see. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And there are people doing that every day. The reason that our clients purchase the first or the second or the third home that they see is because we do a great job of finding out what you want through our questionnaire, through our time here today. So we're clear on what you're looking for. Since we're clear on what you're looking for, then when we do our search or we take you to look at properties, we already know you're going to like it. So after maybe the first or the second house, we're 100% concrete on if you're going to like what you need to see in the third or the fourth house. I'll even tell the buyer, look, I may have 5 houses for you to look at, and then when we go see the very first home, if this is our very first time together, based on your feedback that you're going to give me, because you're going to give me feedback after every single home that you look at, based on the feedback that you're going to give me, I'm going to be clear. I may say, hey, look, we don't even need to look at these other 4 properties, because based on your feedback around this and what you put in the questionnaire, this stuff's not going to work. And I'll discredit, if I truly believe that they're not going to like the other 4 houses, I'll discredit us even going to spend any more time, wasting any more time looking at those other 4. Even if the buyer is like, oh, well, I just want to see them anyway, I'll tell them it's no point, because you said this was your 1, this is your 2 thing. These are your deal breakers. And, based on this conversation, based on the feedback that you've given me, these were your deal killers, and these houses have those. So it would just be a waste of your time for me to drag you over there to look at those houses. Always frame it to where it's in their best interest not to do something or to do something. It's always about them. You got to frame it around, it's always about them. I hate to say it, but the way the world is, nobody cares about you and what problems you got going on and what time. They don't care, right? So you just got to make it about them. So I deal with that here, right? And then I deal with the most important key to finding the right home is your feedback. So they understand. And that's a part of our process. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about in our training as well as we continue this conversation with buyers. When you're going on the property showing, you got to do that a certain way. Every time you take a buyer out, you should have a contract with you. Because every time you take a buyer out, you should have in your mind that they're going to pick a house today. You shouldn't just be going out lackadaisical, thinking, oh, it's just another time me getting in the car and driving a buyer out. You should be clear on, we going to look at houses, we buying houses. We're not just shopping. So the way for you to get there faster is, number 1, hold the buyer accountable to be able to explain to you why they're not picking a particular house. If this house has everything, the criteria that they said, then you have to have something in place to where you can get that out of them, a rating system. What did you like? What did you not like? Got to have that conversation with them in front of the driveway of every single property that they look at. And you got to be intentional about that, because you need that feedback to help them make a decision. We're here to help them make a decision. All right, so then we go into the shopping for your home. So, these are links that you can actually click on, and it'll pull up examples of these things. So we just show them, hey, you'll get these MLS write-ups of particular properties that you may be interested in or that I think you're interested in. You get printable maps. We can do a market analysis. It's the similar method that the appraiser is going to use when he is determining if the bank's going to lend you the money to buy able to do a market analysis around the house, so you don't necessarily, so you're not wasting money with the inspection, because you're gonna have to pay your inspection, your option fee, your appraisal fee, right? So you're not wasting that money and then come to find out the house is not appraising, right? So we can do market analysis to give, I mean, it's not the end all, but it'll at least give us an idea of if this will work or not. And then our properties likes and dislikes, which is a powerful, powerful resource. And again, we're not going to go through it today because we're just going through the consultation. But I'm going to spend some time on this property likes and dislikes and rating sheet, because that is what you need with you when you go take properties, to pull that feedback out of the buyer so you can help them make a decision and get to the closing table faster. Okay. So after we kind of go through those forms, then we start talking about the purchase contract. So I let them know, by the time we get to the purchase contract, by the time you find a house that you like, we are going to have to speed this process up substantially, because there's a lot of competition in the market. So at this point, I really build in them that putting fire under them to understand that we're going to be moving fast. It's not going to be one of those situations to where you go see a house, you fall in love with it, and then you say, oh, I need a couple of days to think about it. No, that house is going to be gone in a couple of days, because the house is moving that fast. So anything, any way of you getting comfortable around this decision to purchase a home, we need to do that now. We need to start dealing with all those feelings and those issues and those anxieties and all of that now, because by the time we find a house that we like, at that time it's gonna be time to make a decision. Let them know I'm gonna have a contract with me every time we go look at houses, and that means if you like a house, I'm gonna have you signing right there on the spot. I'm going to fill that information in on the contract and get your John Hancock on it right then and there, and say, tomorrow, bring me the earnest money and the option money. We're going to submit this thing, because I'm already going to have a pre-approval letter. No, but I'm not even going to say the earnest money. So I'm going to have a pre-approval letter. I need your signature on this contract. Once I get back to the office, I'm submitting that stuff to the seller and to the listing agent. We got to get in the running, because you don't know what these what the listing agent is working on, and what could have came through their desk in between you calling to see if the house is available and you showing up with your client looking at it. So you want your client to understand, and you do this here at the initial consultation, you want them to understand that this process is going to move very quickly to ensure that we get you the home. And then you also want to let them know that they're standard forms that are approved by the real estate commission. All right. So now, something else that you all have access to. And not only is this a great document for your buyer to look at, a video, I'm sorry, not only is this a great video for your buyer to look at, this is a great video for you to look at, especially our new agents that have not filled out contracts. On this video, I've gone through the 1-to-4 family, the third-party financing, the HOA addendum. I don't know if I went through the lead-based payment or not, but I at least know I've gone through the 1-to-4 family, the third-party financing, and the HOA addendum, blank by blank, to let you know what needs to go, how to fill those forms in. And I'm using a dummy contract that I created to walk you through the steps of what's going to go in and where. So it's a great educational video for your buyer, for them to get familiar with the forms, with the purchase contract. So by the time they see the purchase contract for the first time, that's not the first time that they're seeing it. They would have seen it already through the video, and they would have been able to get comfortable with it. So you all have access to this video in your 7-dot training folder. It is in process. It's in process for working with buyers. This internet's going crazy slow, so I don't know if it's going to pull it up fast enough. But it is in your 7-dot training folder. And what I would do is that, there we go. Okay, so it's in the transaction management. I'm going to double back to make sure that that video is in here, or the link to that video is in here. Because what you want to do, oh, it's not in. Okay, so once we finish, I'm going to double back and make sure that we put that video in there, in the folder. Because what you're going to want to do is that you're going to want to encourage that the client watches this video before y'all go look at properties. And you're going to email them the link to it. So I'm going to put the link in your 7.training folder. You want to take that link. It's on YouTube. You want to take that link and you want to email that video to the client. Now, I don't know, somehow when I did the recording, the audio is real low. So you're going to have to put your headphones in the computer and encourage them to put their headphones in the computer to listen to it because the audio is low. But you want to send it to them. And matter of fact, in the presentation, there's a link. And what I do when I'm sitting face-to-face with them, I let them watch maybe the first 10 to 15 seconds of the video, because you can click on it and it'll actually take you to the video and it'll start playing the video. So that's an embedded video in the presentation. You click on it, I let them see the first 10 to 15 seconds so they can see what the video is going to look like and how it's going to be portrayed, right? And again, you have access to this presentation. You know, once we get off the call, you can open the presentation back up, click on the video, and you can start looking at it. So now I think about it, you actually do have access to the video because it's in the presentation. Okay, so that's what I use that to get them to understand the importance of going through the forms. So then we touch upon some points. You know, I touch upon these points in the video as well, but I kind of, a lot of people, this is their first time ever purchasing a home. It is a very extensive process. Purchasing a home is not easy. It is a very extensive process. So what I do to try to curb that with the customers is that I repeat myself a lot. So I repeat myself when it comes to option period and when it comes to earnest money, when it comes to those things, because inspection, appraisal, because just saying it for the first, just giving it to them one time isn't enough for them to really grasp what all entails in this process. So, you know, I bring up the earnest money and I talk to them about, you know, why the earnest money is needed. I also let them know that the earnest money you can option. So, you know, if there's a offer that's higher than our offer, you know, us offering an extra $1,000 or $2,000 for earnest money, well, there are times that sellers will feel like that's a safer offer. Our listing agents feel like that's a safer offer because you're putting more skin in the game. So you have more built in. Even if a person submits a higher offer, what they really have in the game is only what they put down as earnest money, because that higher offer may never ever be realized. So using earnest money as a negotiating tool, if your buyer has the capability, is a great way of getting your offer accepted as well. So then we let them know that earnest money will be about 1% to 2% of the total offer price. So again, they have in their mind the upfront money that they're going to be needing. And just let them know that earnest money, you're going to need to submit that when we find a house. When it gets accepted, the title company is going to cash that check. So you got to have access to that money. It's not something that you can bring in later. So we have our conversation about earnest money. We have our conversation about inspections. Again, this is a very, very important piece. See, at the initial buyer consultation, you're trying to deal with all of the snags that you may run into as you go through the process with the buyer. So you're dealing with all of those snags then. So the inspection is for major items only, right? You let them know that that inspector is going to spend about 3 to 4 hours going through this house, and that's what you're paying him for. You're paying him to take his time to comb that house, every nook and cranny, to make sure what's wrong with it, right? But you are not going to get caught up over it's going to be very minor details. It's going to be a real thick report of what all that he's looked at. He's went on the roof, he's went in the attic, he's looked, you know, moved the furniture around, looked at the appliances, turned water on, turned it off. He's done a bunch of stuff. But the inspection report is for major items, because even in brand new homes, if you have an inspector go out there, he's going to find items that need to be repaired. And I even recommend that my clients, when they purchase new homes, still get an inspection done, because we found major repairs wrong are needed on brand new houses. So they have inspectors out there that'll not only will they do the inspection after it's built, they'll do inspections, as the builder's going through the phases of building the house. They'll come in at the different phases and inspect it, just to make sure that everything's on the same page as far as the process. Yeah, the city gets it done, and the builders are going to say, well, that's not needed because the city does their inspections and their permits. Look, we all have experience with the city. So you want to have somebody you've paid that's representing you to make sure that you don't have any issues down the road. This is a long-term investment for you, and you want to make sure that it's done right. But the inspection is for major items only. Make sure that you're not inheriting any roof problems, foundation, HVAC, plumbing, electrical. It's for that major stuff. And even if you're willing to move forward with some of those major items, at least you know what you're getting into. But that's what the inspection is for. It's for us to identify the major items and determine if this is something that we're going to move in. But if it's just a gutter needs to be replaced, or the door frame is rotted out, or stuff like that, it's not a brand new house. So don't expect for a seller to fix every single thing that's on the inspection report. So you want to manage their expectations. Okay, so after we go through that, we talk about the appraisal. Typical cost about $450, and we let them know that's an upfront cost. But the best part of it is that you won't overpay for your property, right? If you're getting a loan, that lender is not going to lend money on a property that is more expensive than what the market says it is, that is overvalued. So what you do is you give that buyer, when you're sitting in front of that buyer, you give them that assurance that it's no way that they're overpaying for it. And what that does is that when it's time to negotiate, if that buyer is like, well, I don't think, they're apprehensive about making a certain offer amount because they don't want to overpay for a property. They don't want to have to worry about a property getting depreciated and things like that. Then you just remind them of the conversation that you had with them at your first consultation around the appraisal process. And that when you pay that appraiser, he's going to, ensure you that you're not overpaying. And then you let them know, again, that's another one of those upfront costs. That's not something that's paid at closing. So you need your earnest money, your option money, your inspection money, and your appraisal money. All of those, you need that up front. So again, you're managing their expectations so they're clear on the amount of money that they need to have access to. Because remember, when it's time to start moving on this thing, it's time to start moving. All right, so that's the bulk of the presentation, right? So the rest of this stuff, I don't spend a whole lot of time with them when it goes through. But this right here, this slide is extremely important. This slide is when I use the time to really get them to understand how intrusive the loan process is. This one I let them know, once we've gotten the offer accepted, once we've done the inspection, and once we've decided that we're gonna move forward with the transaction to closing, this is why I let them know that that loan officer is going to be asking you a lot of questions, and the process is going to become really intrusive. Don't get frustrated if it seems as if you have to keep sending in the same information. Like they ask for your check stubs and then they call back and say they need your check stubs again, or they need another recent check stub, or they need another recent bank statement. Or if they look at a bank statement and there's a charge that you can't explain, and they say, okay, well, I need you to go and get a bank statement at a different date that doesn't have that charge in there. Like, it's going to be really, really intrusive, and I want you to understand that. And then I let them know that, it's not my response. I'm not going to be able to prevent the home buying process from being challenging and convoluted and cumbersome. I'm not able to prevent that from happening. The lender is not able to prevent that from happening. The title company is not preventing that from happening. The process itself is challenging. The process itself is cumbersome. I'm just here to help smooth it out as best as I can, along with the other professionals that we're going to be working with. So this is where you really have spend some time in that conversation with the buyer to get them to manage their expectations around. Once we get to that point, it is going to be frustrating for you. And one of the ways that I really use to help get them to understand and connect with them is I let them know about my experience in purchasing a home. And I let them know, hey, look, I didn't purchase my own home until I had been in the industry for 10 years. And I had helped hundreds of people buy homes. And then it was time for me to buy my own home. And even I got frustrated and almost wanted to give up when it got time for us to go through the underwriting process. So now if I, who's a professional, who's helped all these people, even if I got to the point to where I wanted to give up, then I can imagine if this being your first time purchasing a home, how challenging and how frustrated you're going to get. But I want you to understand that I'm here and you have other people that are here to help better explain and educate you on what's going on. And it isn't just your file. All of them are like this. So that's why I really go in and I explain that to them. But then I let them know, once we get past all of that and once we get to the other side and we've got our clear to close, oh, Lord, it's a reason to celebrate, because at that point, we've gotten our full loan commitment and we're going to title and we're going to close this thing out. And once we get our clear to close, all of our time and efforts is paid off. And typically with the clear to close, well, now with the new TREC guidelines, once we get the closing disclosure, you need 3 days to kind of look at that before you can actually set your closing date. So, typically 3 to 4 days after you get the clear to close, you're going to the title company and you're closing on the transaction. But again, all of your time and efforts have paid off. You're going to bring your cashier's check that's made payable to the title company for the down payment and closing costs, but you're going to get that 3 days prior to actually closing. So you'll have time to get all that money together. And you just can make sure you bring your driver's license or official photo ID. And if they're married, tell them, you and your wife or you and your husband both have to bring your IDs with you to closing. And I'll remind you the day before or the day, a couple of days before, these are the things that you're going to need. So we'll revisit that. But I at least want to say it here during the consultation to put it on their mind. That's what they need. Okay, so now we've sat down with this buyer and we've gone through the entire home buying process with them, right? We've gone through the entire home buyer process and educated them on the process. Now, we haven't sold them on using us as their real estate professional. All we've done is educated them on how the process works. Now, we've thrown in, during your educational part of it, you want to subtly hint to you being better than other people. You having access to things that other agents don't have access to. But you're not asking for the sale. You're not closing it yet, right? Think back. All they've done so far is they filled out the questionnaire. They've told you what kind of buyer they are, and you've educated them through the home buyer process. So there's at this point, they don't have to make any decision about using you or not. And you haven't asked them that. You haven't even put them in that position, right? So that takes you back to when you're trying to sell the appointment, when you're trying to sell the consultation, let them know that it's a no pressure appointment. Let them know that they're not going to have to do anything. It's not going to cost them anything. It's mainly about education. I just want to educate you. I want to get to know you more about where you are in the process, and I want to educate you on the home buyer process. And then after that's said and done, we can talk about if you would like me to help you or not. But it's no pressure at all. You don't have to make any decisions or any of that stuff. I'm not going to be pushing you to do any of that stuff. I just wanted to get together, know more about you and where you are in the process, as well as to educate you on what the home buyer process looks like, whether you use me or whatever company. Just educate me. So that's not where the sale is. At this point, you haven't closed them on using you. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop it here for today, And then next week, we're going to go into the close. How do you close them? And look, when I say you close them, that means that they've signed paperwork saying that you are their agent. Not, all right, we're going to use you, and then you just go to work for them. They need to make a commitment. You're going to make a commitment to them, and they need to make a commitment to you. And the way that they make a commitment to you is by signing paperwork, signing the client broker loyalty agreement. That is your golden ticket. That is your employment agreement. That is them hiring you to be their real estate professional and making a commitment to you. And if you don't get those from buyers, they're not your clients. Those are just customers, and they can go work with whoever they want to work with because you haven't gotten them to commit to you. You haven't closed them on using you. So that's what we're going to talk about next week. The remaining slides, because these remaining slides go into the close, and then we're going to talk about how to get them to sign the other documents and how to present the other documents that are in your packet. We're going to do that next week. All right, great. So, and I didn't get to this last week, but I'm going to talk. I do want to talk a little bit about it this week, maybe for the next 5 minutes, and then we'll shut it down. So, doing some conflict resolution, I actually got a TREC complaint, and again, I mentioned it last week. Been in this business for 12 years, never got a TREC complaint, but I got one. So, what's going to happen when somebody complains? You're going to get a letter. So this is the letter that I got. And again, it's very important that you do this business right, because there are times like this when I didn't do nothing wrong, but when a consumer complains on you to TREC, whether you've done something wrong or not, you better make sure you have all your I's dotted and all your T's crossed, because you could get in trouble for other stuff that has nothing to do with the complaint. But what it did was it shedded light on you being out of compliance. So you need to be up to speed on TREC rules, guidelines, all of that. You need to know it. You need to know how to do it, because if you ever have to defend yourself to TREC, it's more than just saying he say, she say. The consumer is always right until you prove them wrong, right? Whether right or wrong, if you can't prove to TREC that they're wrong, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get disciplined by TREC, whether through fine, even up to the point where they take your license. So be careful when TREC gets into the building. All right, so they're going to give you a file number. They're going to give you a letter. And with the letter, it's going to say somebody complained against you, and it's going to tell you that you need to respond to the accusation. And then they're going to give you a copy of the complaint. So this was a copy of what the person submitted, and what their complaint was. Is another letter, and it's signed by them. And it has it filled out, their recollection of what took place. And if you notice down here, that's 30 pages. So they submitted 30 pages of their proof or response to what they were complaining against me on. So they submitted all their proof. They submitted their contract. They submitted all of that. All right. So when somebody comes, so I want you to understand, that's why I'm showing you this. When somebody sends a TREC complaint, it's not something that you can deal with in a couple of minutes or a couple of hours. It took me almost a week to get to a point, to gather my information, to look through it, to formulate my response, my defense. It took almost a week just to be in a position to where I could respond on these allegations which were wrong. And I had to prove it to TREC. So this is everything that she submitted. It's coming in slow. But so that's everything. So 30 pages she submitted. All right, so now 10 days later, right? So I'm not playing. It took me 10 days to deal with this, to get my information in a form to where I could send it back to them. And they only give you 15. I think they only give you 10 business days. So in the letter that TREC sends you, they give you Yeah, the 10th working day. You have 10 business days to respond. And if you don't respond in 10 business days, it's a problem. So it ain't something that you can sleep on either. But understand, it's going to take you some time to compile it. So you should start at day one. As soon as I got this complaint, I started working on defending myself. All right. So then what I finally submitted to them, and you can submit it via fax or you can email it to them. This was my response. And you see mine has 18 pages. So I had to do all of this. I had to write all of this to defend myself against something that was erroneous. I mean, I had to put emails in there that was submitted, attachments. I had 10 attachments. And I had to, and what I did, the best way for me to combat it was in my response statement, I labeled the attachment. So as you can see on attachment 1 through 3, so attachments 4 through 6. So I'm making it easy for the TREC person to look at my evidence and understand. I'm painting a picture for the TREC person that's going to be reviewing my file. I'm painting a picture for them, making them easy so they can easily discredit it, dismiss it, and then I ain't got to be worried about it. So I have my attachments labeled. I have emails in there. Emails. This was her response. So I even used her own information to discredit her because that was her response. Again, emails, DocuSign screenshots, transaction history from DocuSign. I had to use all of that. Emails. So you better be keeping up with this stuff. If you're sending emails and stuff, every client that you work with should have a label in your email. Whatever email account you use, you should make a label with that client's name in it. Because if you ever have to come back and access this stuff, you need to be able to get to it. See, I was able to access all of this information because it was all in my email and DocuSign to defend myself. So, conflict resolution. When TREC gets involved, you better be prepared. And the way that you be prepared for TREC is by making sure that you keep track of all your documentation with everybody that you're working with and be able to do it easily. I use Gmail. Gmail allows you to create labels. I create a label inside of Gmail, and every time I get an email on that particular person, it goes into that Gmail label. So when I had to defend myself here, I just clicked on that person's name, and it pulled up all the emails, all correspondences, everything that I had concerning that person. So it made it real easy for me to defend myself. So that's how you prepare for TREC, is by making sure you're proactive as you're working with files and working with clients. Okay, so that's it. That's all I have. Anybody has any questions, want to do any coaching, anybody that's maybe looking at it and that wants to hit me on the group me, or if Latanya, if Valerie, if you all have any questions or anything, any coaching, let me know. We can deal with it right now or not. So I'll just kind of hang back for a little bit, deal with any coaching, any questions about anything that I talked about. And but if everybody's good, I want you to have a great weekend. As we go into this week, we've had 3 days of gorgeous, beautiful weather. Find time to enjoy it. You know, yeah, you need to work. You need to make money. But understand that the truest joys in life is when you can not only make the money, but have the time to enjoy the money. So always, as you're building your business, always have that in the front of your mind, that it's not about just working hard and so you can have a certain level of income. I mean, what's the point of having $100,000 a year, but you're working 80, 90 hours a week? Like that's just not the type of quality of life that you want. So build your business around creating that kind of model and doing that. So, all right, Valerie, you have something for me?
No, it's interesting you said that though, because I was just saying I've been working too hard. I haven't been able to get in the office,
Oh,
but you're gonna throw that in on the end and make me feel guilty.
Hey, I told y'all I want to be convicting y'all on these calls, man. Y'all doing something y'all know y'all need to be doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
no,
need to
but
get
I
you in
don't
here.
have any
Uh,
questions, so
you don't have any questions? Okay, good. Are you enjoying these?
yes, I am. Yeah, they're very interesting, and stuff I need to hear.
Stuff you need to, well, good. Well, I'm gonna keep saying it then.
All right.
All right. Well, look, I appreciate you coming and everybody else that's taking a look at the videos and it comes every week. I really do appreciate it. I enjoy it. And if you guys need anything, give me a call, give Brooks a call. We'll work through the kinks. Make sure you're looking at your seminar training. Make sure you're looking at the videos, tap into your resources. And God willing, we'll see you on next week at the two things we're having next week.
All right.
All righty?
All right. Have a good one.
All right. You have a good one. Bye-bye.